Zoo-wee mama, how's it going everyone? We are here today to talk about the newest season pass card, Agent Venom. Second Dinner has released their official season announcement video for the October Venom season. So this is no longer data mined, this is official. Okay, we have Agent Venom, a 2-cost, 4-powered card coming out October 1st, right when the new season starts. If you do go ahead and buy the season pass, you will get him right away. He has the on-reveal ability to set the power of all cards in your deck to 4. Now, he's also a 4-powered card, so it has the theme of 4's obvious Cerebro 4 synergy, but I think he's got a lot of other, even better synergy out there. He's kind of like Bast, but with 1 extra power, and for your deck instead of your hand. So you do need to buff up the cards and then draw them in order to take advantage of it. But I'm going to go over some of his best synergies and some deck ideas, the pros, the cons, and just give my rating on how I think Agent Venom will perform in this new season, and also give you the community ratings that I had. If you did not vote on that yet, go check out my October season preview video and you can vote on every new card coming out this season, and I will include your ratings in that community score. So let's get into it. So some of Agent Venom's best synergies in Snap will likely be cards like Brood. Okay, Brood is just great at receiving any kind of power buff because it essentially gets tripled. Okay, so if you turn a 3-2 Brood into a 3-4 Brood, you're adding on 6 power there. That essentially makes Agent Venom like a 210 from just hitting Brood alone. This can also work with things like Hood. Okay, something just a lot of 1-cost or 2-cost that have low power. If they're at like 0 or 1 or even negative power and you buff them up with Agent Venom, that's just insane value. And then obviously we can go that Cerebro 4 route like I mentioned earlier. That could be fun and viable. Finally, Cerebro 4, who would have thought? Now, what you might not like playing against, something like Black Widow. So it's going to be kind of annoying actually with Darkhawk. You know, if your opponent plays Korg turn 1, they shuffle a rock in, and turn 2 you play Agent Venom, maybe you gave that rock 4 power, and now it's not so bad. But if they play Rock Slide on turn 3 after you played Agent Venom, well, now the rocks that are new to the deck are just 0 power, okay? Or if your opponent plays Black Widow and it actually just stunts a draw, you're missing out on that power buff because Agent Venom, you need to draw those cards. And this is where something like a Baron Zemo can also be annoying, because if you're losing cards in your deck, you might be losing all the buffs you got from Agent Venom. Okay, if you have no more cards to draw, you can't get any more value out of him. And then something like Shadow King is just going to be a bit tough because Shadow King does even overwrite Luke Cage now. Okay, he sets cards to their original power. That's his, most recent change that he got, so he can just reset anything even if you have Luke Cage on the board. So definitely watch out for the Shadow King. So to talk about the good and the bad for Agent Venom in more detail, we'll look at the good. First up, he can add a lot of power to a cheap deck, okay? This is very similar to Bast, where you have mostly a cheap deck and maybe some more expensive cards but that have low power, and you can just hit like one big hand and get huge power value. For Agent Venom, you're not hitting your hand, you're hitting your deck, but if you have a ton of good targets, even if they're really cheap cards, that's going to give him great value, okay? And you really just need to hit like one good thing. I mentioned Brood earlier. Because Agent Venom is a 4-powered card already, I mean, that's already a decent stat line. That is not a bad floor. And so if you just hit Brood, you now have essentially a 210 worth Agent Venom. That's just good value from a 2-cost. And obviously if you hit a couple of things plus Brood, that can just get crazy. Okay, those numbers just skyrocket. And he is an enabler. He's like a Bast or a, maybe Valkyrie in like a Cerebro deck, or just like when we think of Zabu or Ravana. But oftentimes enablers aren't good on turn 6 if they are, a 2-cost card that's really letting you play things. Think of Zabu or Ravana that are giving discounts to cards. And if you play him on turn 6, they don't do anything. Well, Agent Venom, if you play him on turn 6, yeah, he's not going to help you out with cards in your deck, setting them to 4 power, but he's still a 4-powered card on turn 6. I mean, he is really high power for an enabler, okay? A card that I would consider to be something enabling your other cards, your other combos, and setting things up. So that's very, very beneficial to have that stat line for his type of ability, I think. In terms of the bad, well, first up, you do need to draw the cards after playing him. Okay, again, if you play him at the end, he's still 4 power, but you're not getting the extra value. It's not like Bast, where you're hitting stuff in your hand, and you know exactly what got hit, and you know you can play it. With Agent Venom, if you know what cards are in your deck, well then you know what got hit, but you don't know if you can play it, because you don't know if you're going to draw that card, or when you're going to draw the card, okay? If you hit Cerebro, Mystique, and Iron Man, that sounds really good, but if those are the last 3 cards in your deck, and you don't draw them that game, it didn't matter, okay? So that is a big downside, and you do have RNG on that opening hand. Maybe you drew Cerebro, Mystique, and Iron Man right away. Okay, kind of like a Mr. Negative deck. Sometimes you draw all the cards that you want to flip before you even play Mr. Negative. He does definitely limit deck building. Okay, I'm going to show a couple deck ideas, and I don't think he's too niche, but he does limit deck building. You cannot have a bunch of big powered cards in your deck because he's setting the power of things to 4. Okay, you don't want a bunch of big stuff. And in terms of Shadow King, again, you got to watch out for, if you are playing to have, you know, just Luke Cage to try and protect everything, a Shadow King will come in and override that Luke Cage. To look at Agent Venom's floor and his ceiling, was floor or him at his reasonable worst. In the decks you play him in, it just can be that he does nothing. Okay, he's just a 2/4. If you were playing him in a deck with a bunch of big powered cards, he could actually have a negative effect, but you're just not going to do that, okay? You're not going to put Agent Venom in like a Hella deck or something with a bunch of, you know, big power stuff. You're just not going to do that, okay? So the decks where you'd actually play Agent Venom, the worst case scenario is that he does nothing and he's a 2/4, which isn't that bad. That means viable, and honestly, it's kind of competitive. If you're on, you know, turn 6 and you just need to play something, go ahead and play 2/4, right? I mean, it's really, really a solid stat line for just him at his base. It's nice. 4 power on 2 cost is nice. Him at his best, however, is that he is giving a lot of plus power to all of your next draws. So if you have a deck that has basically everything in it under 4 power besides Agent Venom, and you get him down right on turn 2, then on turn 3, 4, 5, and 6, and potentially turn 7, if you do have Magic in your deck, you are drawing buffed up cards. Okay, this is going to be a wide range of power here. It's not going to be one set thing. It's going to depend on what you draw, what its original power was, if it gets extra value from it, like Brood or Mysterio. So he could be anywhere from like a 2/8 or 2/16. You will have times, you know, it's going to be a bit more rare, really, really lucky, when Agent Venom ends up producing more than 16 total power. Okay, maybe he hit an Iron Man and a Hood and a Brood and a Mysterio. It just hits like the lottery. Okay, that may happen at times. But often if you get him down right on turn 2 in the right deck, he is going to very consistently produce big value. I think that would be overpowered if he did that every time. Again, you're going to have some luck involved, and you are limiting yourself to deck building a bit. So where is he on average? Well, on average, I think he's actually maybe a bit close to the overpowered line, at least when you look at just the raw numbers. I think on average you can expect, if you're playing Agent Venom on turn 2, or even if a bit later on turn 3, if you missed the draw, you can hit 2 to 3 of your next draws with buffs. Okay, you may have a deck where you have a couple cards that already have 4 power, but the majority of them are maybe at 1, 2, or 3 power. So you can expect, you know, maybe turns 3, 4, and 5, you draw stuff that got a bit of extra power from Agent Venom. Okay, in this case, maybe he ends up being like a 2/6 at worst, or he goes all the way up to like a 2/12. Those are still just good numbers. Okay, it's going to be a range. It's not going to be the exact same thing every turn, but what's nice is your opponent doesn't know either, right? It's a range for you, so you're not going to know before the game starts, but once, you know, you're on turn 5 or turn 6, you're going to know what every card was buffed by. Okay, you're going to know you drew an Iron Man that had 4 power. Your opponent, even if they know you have Iron Man, they don't know if you already had Iron Man at 0 power or if you drew it after Agent Venom at 4. It's actually going to be kind of hard for them. Okay, it's kind of an extra benefit, similar to Gwenpool, where you're buffing up stuff in your hand and your opponent just doesn't know what to play around. So I think on average, it's looking good for Agent Venom. Okay, I really think he's going to produce good value. He's just a bit limited in deck building. This is just my friendly reminder that if you're enjoying this video, to go ahead and hit that like button and hit subscribe to the channel if you have not already, because we cover every single new card in Marvel Snap, as well as the full season of spotlights. I'm going to have my October spotlight ratings video coming up soon, and I've been doing these 5-minute card guides for the existing spotlight cards that are being re-released as well. So the first deck that I want to show off for Agent Venom is this Toxic Surfer list. Now, when I did my October season preview, I mentioned that I really liked the potential of Agent Venom in a Surfer deck, okay? And I think that I can go with a standard Surfer deck or a Toxic Surfer deck, which is a bit more combo oriented like this one. The reason that I like Agent Venom in Surfer is because, first up, Surfer doesn't have many go-to 2-cost cards, okay? It's very competitive for 3 costs, and you want a ton of them because you're playing Silver Surfer, but you can squeeze in an extra 2 costs if there's something you really like, but it has kind of trouble finding something of just amazing value. Well, I think Agent Venom can help out, and I went with this Toxic Surfer variation because we've got some extra low-power cards in here, like Wong, Ironheart, Hazmat, and Magic that you don't find in most Surfer decks. What I also really like is that it has Magic. That means you're going to turn 7. That means you get 1 extra draw. You get 1 extra draw. That's 1 more chance to get something that was buffed up by Agent Venom. Okay, if you can draw more cards, you can get more value out of Agent Venom. And as I mentioned, he has so many good targets in here. I mean, even just hitting Ironheart and Brood, if you just hit those 2 cards in one game and drew them after, that feels great, okay? Even if you drew a 6/4 Odin and you just played him as 4 power, that's fine. That's really not a big loss, and that's the only potential loss we have here, okay? Odin is the only card that starts out over 4 power, and it's just nice, you know, if you are against an opponent that's also just doing a combo deck. Usually you can try and go over the top of them, just go bigger with this Toxic Surfer, set up the Wong into Surfer, into Odin, or, you know, Wong, Ironheart, Odin. It goes huge, and it's just a fun deck to play. Next up, I've got Agent Venom in a Zoo deck. Okay, now this is, for the most part, a typical Marvel Boy Shanna Zoo deck that's been really strong since Marvel Boys come out. I did take out Mockingbird and Gilgamesh. So I mentioned the deck building restrictions for Agent Venom. Okay, you could run Gilgamesh and Mockingbird still, but you also run the risk of reducing their power with Agent Venom if they were in your deck. Okay, so I actually swapped them out, and I even put in a card like Super Skrull, which is really interesting, unexpected. Your opponent, if they're playing against Zoo, they're not going to be playing around a Super Skrull, and normally he's pretty low power. It's kind of hard to justify a Super Skrull unless there's a ton of ongoing in the meta, or there's, you know, the top meta decks have like 1 or 2 really powerful ongoing cards that are good for you to copy. But if you're playing a 4/4 Super Skrull, well, that's pretty good just most of the time, even if you don't have the best targets. And when you do luck out, it's even better against the right opponent. And so I think there's potential here in Zoo. Maybe certain decks do put back the Gilgamesh and Mockingbird, but I think we're going to be able to see a bunch of cheap variations with the Agent Venom in here. Because if he hits Marvel Boy, Ant-Man, Dazzler, like, they're just some big targets here. You know, even if he just hits Ant-Man plus Marvel Boy and you draw those cards after he hit them, that's plus 6 power value from Agent Venom. Okay, that's a lot. It's so easy for him to get huge value if you have a deck with a few cards that are like 1 or 2 power. And last up, we've got the obvious Cerebro 4 lists. Okay, now Cerebro 4 has never really been a strong, viable deck. I'm not sure Agent Venom takes it there, but I did throw this deck together, and I like it because it works with or without him. Okay, it's possible you're playing this deck and you don't draw Agent Venom, or you draw Agent Venom and you're able to play him, but you already have, say, Cerebro, Mystique, Iron Man in hand, like I mentioned. But this deck works without that as well. We do have some cards that already start at 4 power, like the original Mysterio, Hope Summers, Makari, Nocturne, Leech, and Claw. And what's nice with Hawkeye, you use his on reveal if he didn't get hit with Agent Venom. And if he did get hit with Agent Venom, you don't use his on reveal. Okay, so turn 1, you can play Hawkeye. Turn 2, play Agent Venom on him or something, and he'll sit at 4 power, and that's it. But if he was in your deck when you played Agent Venom and you drew him later, you just play him, let's say turn 6, alongside Claw. So he's just a 1/4 and you don't activate his on reveal. Okay, so that's kind of a little fun interaction. Kate Bishop, 2 of her arrows can get to 4 power, so that works out as well. I mean, we're getting some new additions to this C4 package, and we'll see how it does. So here is the Pandart Studio variant for Agent Venom that you will get at the end of the Season Pass rewards track if you do go ahead and buy the Season Pass for the October season. Now, I've got these new sections here I mentioned in my October season video. I'm showing my ratings and I'm showing the community's ratings, okay? So I put out a poll on my season preview video. People voted, and we're going to see what they voted, okay? For this one, we're mostly in line, actually. In terms of being flexible, I give Agent Venom 2 stars. I don't think he's insanely niche. I think he's got a couple options, but he's not a card you can put in everything, okay? Because if you've got just 1 or 2 big power stuff, you already run a risk with Agent Venom. And anything more than that, it's just not a question. He's not going to fit in there. Okay, in the community, we got similar ratings here. Just about everyone gave him 2 stars, said he's just okay in terms of being flexible. Okay, I do think the decks he have that he can fit in, though, are pretty interesting and diverse. You know, it's not like he's fitting in to multiple versions of like a discard. No, he's, you know, maybe in Cerebro, maybe in Surfer, maybe in Zoo. I mean, these decks play fairly differently from each other. So I think it's going to be pretty easy for someone to find a deck that fits their playstyle, but they definitely won't be able to play Agent Venom in every deck that fits their playstyle, right? In terms of being competitive, I'm a little bit higher than some of the community, so I'm giving Agent Venom 3 stars, saying he's going to be pretty good. I don't know if he's going to be amazing. I think the fact that you need to draw the cards is really what's setting him back from like Bast, where you play Bast and you know you're getting this huge value. There's going to be times where you play Agent Venom and you just don't end up drawing many of the cards, okay? And maybe you played him later in the game or something. But I think he's going to be good. I think he can add a ton of value. There's going to be some games he does carry. He is going to be a win condition at times, and not every card out there can be a win condition, okay? He's not just a supporting card. He's a bit more of a build-around, which some Season Pass cards are, so I think it's pretty fair and obvious for his role to be that. We seem to be on the same page. It seems like everyone, you know, knows that Agent Venom has good potential, right? Setting things to 4 is pretty good, but it's not obvious if it can be amazing. It doesn't seem OP because of the draw and the downside if you're playing big stuff. And we're going to have to see how he does, okay? I'm excited for this card. I think just being the Season Pass card, which is already just a great spot to spend money. It's great value in the game if you're planning to spend real money on it. And he does seem pretty fun and interesting. Possibly brings about some new decks or archetypes or makes C4 viable. He's going to be worth getting, okay? I do think Agent Venom's worth it, just like I think just about every Season Pass card is worth it. If he's too weak, he gets buffed, right? That's what happens with Season Pass cards. And it can happen with other cards as well, but especially Season Pass cards. Symbiote Spider-Man just got buffed, which he seemed like he was getting some play, but Second Dinner was like, hey, we want him to win more. Here's a buff, okay? Gilgamesh got buffed pretty quickly after Here's release. So if Agent Venom is too weak, he's just going to get buffed, okay? He's a really safe buy, Season Pass card, and I think he's going to be just plain fun. So those are my thoughts and deck ideas and predictions for Agent Venom. I'm excited to hear yours. We did have a few people saying they're most excited for him. They think he could be the best card of the season. We'll have to see how that goes. Let me know in the comments specifically which combos or decks you're excited to try him out in. Again, I really like the thought of him hitting Brood or hitting Iron Man. Those just seem like amazing hits, okay? Or even the Hood just seems like a great one. And maybe you could put together a balance deck for him as well, right? There's some potential there. So let me know what you think his best targets to hit will be and what decks he will love. And until then, stay positive. I'll see you next time.